Has described the opinion piece attributed to Minister Lindiwe Sisulu, criticizing the Constitution as reckless utterances. We continue to reflect on that thought piece. We're joined by Mavuso Msimang. He is an ANC veteran, and he's got something to say about that. Dr. Msimang, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon and availing yourself. Why were you moved by this piece to a point of writing a response?
Thank you very much for inviting me, and good afternoon to your viewers. Yes, I described that article as an extraordinary kind of piece of work. Extraordinary in very many ways. Firstly, because it was a full-scale support, full attack on the colleagues of Minister Sisulu. She says that her colleagues who are in cabinet, who are in the National Executive Committee of the party, these are the people who have the ability, the power to make decisions. She says they have lost interest in the welfare of the poor. Cites an example of a paper, a suggestion that was made by the late Sampi Telebranch to look at the possibility of putting together an economic truth and reconciliation commission. She says people who had the power to do that blatantly, just patently ignored it. They were not interested. So she describes to the public people who have become very rich, multimillionaires, billionaires. I just find it, I don't know in which other country you would have a minister go to the public and launch such a vicious attack on her colleagues. I found that very extraordinary. And then, of course, when I started reading the article, I found many other things that were said which were equally disturbing. Yeah.
We'll get into those things in a moment, but this that you describe as an attack on her colleagues, does she not unwittingly then implicate herself as she's part of this government that she's criticizing?
This is what is so strange, because it is known that she has been in leadership positions since the beginning of democracy here, and had plenty of opportunities to raise these issues whenever they arose in the course of these 25 years, and say, colleagues, I worry about our trajectory. We came into power with the aim of working for the people who voted for us, by the way, making sure that we lighten their burden, which was imposed by many centuries of colonization, that their exclusion from the economy should be our priority, that their denial of basic human rights, which the Constitution, which I'm sure we'll want to talk about, declare them to be, namely housing, the right to education, that all these things are not going well. This is really amazing, absolutely is. She was there. I thought perhaps if she decided in the article to hint, even in a paragraph, a line, to say, I tried to raise these issues internally. No one seemed to worry too much about this, and now I'm bringing them out to the public. But also linked to that is that when we've given up trying to convince your colleagues about the correctness of your position, then you either have to say, I'm leaving you because I can't continue with this bunch of people, in which case you resign, or you accept resignation because this is not your fit anymore. So yes, it was very strange that she should be saying these things and blaming other people and not explaining what efforts she made to bring them to the attention of other people, and how she was rebuffed if she was. It's a very strange thing. That's why I called it an extraordinary article.
Right. You mentioned there were a couple of issues that she pointed out that seemed to be of concern to you. So one of the things she says is that it seems today we have legitimized wrongdoing under the umbrella of the rule of law. Many years down the line, Africans manage poverty while others manage wealth. When we talk about transformation, is it just a buzzword? When we talk about reconciliation, what we don't hear is economic reconciliation. Your thought on this piece?
Yes, but exactly. This is a continuation of the strangeness of this article. She hears these things when she is where. She sees that law and order is being used, I think that's what it says, to suppress the people. All of this is really difficult to understand. What was the aim of saying things that really are that don't match that? So it worried me that she should go on this full-scale accusation of people accusing people of negligence. I don't understand. I mean, there's something being said about the rule of law. And that this rule of law is being used. I do not know how that is happening. And I think we would have been enlightened, the public, provided this thing was presented properly, we would understand how the rule of law is being used to suppress the poor. So a lot of claims that are made are just statements that lack substantiation. Which makes for a very poor paper, to be honest with you.
So it's not necessarily who is saying it, but you are also questioning what is being said, saying that there's no validity in some of the points that she raises.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there is this thing about the Constitution or having let down the people. How is that to be? This Constitution is correctly, by the way, and I think we should be proud of this fact, regarded as one of the best constitutions in the world. It was put together relatively in terms of constitutions very recently. It's 25 years old, something like that. And it was put in place through a very, very thorough process of negotiation. Which involved very many parties. It's got a Bill of Rights. It accommodates customary things that are observed in customary law. So it's very enabling, and I'm not even talking about its application. There are two things here. Does the Constitution as it stands, is it unsuitable for the needs of the poor people? We're not told how that would be the case. But there is also the issue of its application. I've seen judges actually go out of their way to ensure that they even suspend illegal contracts for the sake of making sure that the poor people do get the services that they need. In case I sound like I'm talking gibberish, there was a contract for the distribution of funds to and social grants to their recipients. The winner of this contract was challenged successfully. So it should have made that contract. It did actually make it invalid. But the matter, the judges of the court decided that, listen, we will suspend this invalidity. It's invalid, but let's suspend that, because if we said this is invalid and therefore we strike it off, people would not have been able to receive their food. So they suspended this until such time that the department was able to conduct another tender process and found a suitable person to do that. We've seen this, the judges, with, and this is very important, people in rural areas, a place in the Eastern Cape called Kolobeni, where mining companies, having reached agreement with our government, were ready to start mining. It's not platinum, continue to forget this thing. But the people said we've not been consulted, and we don't know what the implications of this mining is going to be. And they went to court. And in court, the court said, yes, they were absolutely right. They had to be consulted, and they had to give a full and informed consent to this thing to go ahead. If they didn't give that consent, this should not go ahead. These are very weak people in terms of their social standing and so on, challenging the might of big powers, big companies in the private sector with the assistance of government, unfortunately, and they stopped that. And this decision applied to any other mining area, so that from that time on, people knew that they had to consult communities who lived in the areas where they were planning to prospect for mining. Yeah. I could give you very many other examples.
You also note in your reply that she categorizes the impact of poverty in terms of Africans and others, and not curiously of blacks and whites. Please, meaning what?
I will tell you this. I've been hearing all sorts of crazy explanations about this one. You know, apartheid discriminated against all members of the South African population except white ones. So it was about the first-class citizens in this country were white people. The rest of the others were second-class, maybe third-class, and whatever else you'd like to say. So all people who were not white have suffered from apartheid. There is no doubt. I want to come in very quickly and say that the most difficult, the people who suffered apartheid laws the most were black people. They were really at the bottom of the ladder. And so it is important that their case, that their exclusion, that this situation, historical disadvantage, is corrected. So there is absolutely no questioning the need for government to even use these apartheid terminologies for the sake of targeting people who needed the assistance and measuring any improvement in that regard. But I think to say Africans are managing poverty while others are managing wealth, words to that effect, lumps together people who are not, I assume, and somebody wants to correct me there, that usually when we talk about Africans, we're talking about indigenous people. I do hope this country can get to a position where, more than anything, we're South Africans, rather than Africans, Indians, and what have you. But this characterization, this nomenclature was used for convenience. I think it was used in order to ensure that the disadvantages of the past are addressed. But to say all others, so I do not know, somebody tried to rebut the point I made in my article that Africans is indigenous people, or black, what we call black Africans. We've got people here who are called colors, who are called Indians. But if you say Africans are the ones who are managing poverty, you are actually saying the rest of the other people are in a wealth situation. No, that's not the case, actually. As you would know from statistics, South Africa reports that the white group is still perched right at the top, and the scale remains of disadvantage as you go down. It's differential. So, but you don't lump people who suffered humiliation, dehumanization, and put them away and treat them as not black. Actually, the most progressive way of characterizing people, which came up in the struggle in South Africa, was that those who were not considered white should be regarded as black.
ANC veteran Mavuso Msimang, good to get your thoughts on the situation. Thank you very much for joining us.